Welcome to episode 73 of the Your Way podcast. So, a little bit different for you this week. I'm going to share a little training that I've just done for social media following a question that I got after I did the Art of Embodied Transformation masterclass towards the end of March. If you missed the Art of Embodied Transformation masterclass, you can get it completely for free, and we'll drop the link in the show notes so you can grab that. But I just had this incredible question about whether or not we really need a method if we're working with the body and the nervous system, or is it just more important to create space for the body in session? So the podcast today is my response to that, because I think it's really important that we think about this and we really think about how we are showing up for our clients. And if you're listening to this as a layperson, as a non-coach, a non-therapist, a non-facilitator, it's something for you to think about as well. And then ensuring when you are working with people that they have this level of understanding in the work that they're doing and how they're holding space. Because there is a way to do it safely and there is a way to not do it safely. And I would love for all of you who dip your toe into the world of personal development in whatever guise to ensure that you are held in a safe and contained way. So any questions, let me know. I also talk about the certification that I'm offering towards the end. We'll also put that in the show notes. But essentially, if you are really drawn to working with clients in a way that brings them back to a place of wholeness within themselves, and you want to be able to work with people effectively and safely at the level of mindset, strategy, but also somatic trauma work and also the soul. So it's that real combination of shadow, because mindset work goes so much deeper, like working with that inner council within us. So shadow, somatics, and soul. I'd love to invite you to join the certification. It's 8 months, it's deep dive. You will finish and become an embodied transformation practitioner. And without further ado, I will therefore leave you to listen to my response to how we just create space for the body in session. I'm guessing you know what I'm going to say. All right, enjoy. So I've had an amazing follow-up question to last week's masterclass on the art of embodied transformation. If you missed it and want the recording, let me know. And the question is essentially along the lines of, if we want to do somatic body nervous system work with clients, do we need a specific method, or is it just more important that we bring and create more space for the body in a session? And I thought this was such a good question that I just wanted to do a little video, a little extra training on that as an addition to the masterclass. So if you think about, or when we think about working with the body, what is that actually involving, right? Because most of us are very intellectual, head-based people, and it can be a bit confusing to be like, well, what does she mean when she says work with the body? So when I talk about the body, I mean the nervous system, our nervous system responses. I also mean all of the emotions and the experiences that we have suppressed over time. I'm going to talk a little bit about more of this in more detail in a second, but that's kind of the summary of it. And a lot of the patterns that we have that would appear to be mental, intellectual patterns, they actually arise as a result of body-based issues. So a great example, or a great couple of examples, are things like people pleasing and perfectionism. If we learn that disappointing others and other people not liking us or thinking that we are not lovable is so uncomfortable, so overwhelming for our system, that we can't actually be with those feelings of somebody not liking us, not agreeing with us, that nervous system response comes in to protect us, and then we develop a pattern of people pleasing, of overgiving, of overriding our needs. If as a child your needs were not met, your emotional needs, maybe when you were sad, when you cried, particularly if you're of my generation, you might have heard the don't cry or I'll give you something to cry about. You learn very quickly not to get upset, not to go for help, and you have to internalize all of this and hold it inside. And so, again, as adults, we end up in this position of putting everyone before us and not really knowing what we need. So it's a thing that comes up a lot with clients. You probably find it with your own clients. If you ask a client what they need, they won't know because their entire life is focused on other people, giving to other people, making sure everybody else is okay, making sure clients are okay, making sure work's okay, and they're right at the bottom of the pile. So these are kind of intellectual everyday patterns that arise, but they arise as a result of nervous system dysregulation and survival trauma responses within our systems. And when I talk about trauma, I mean anything that overwhelmed the nervous system at a point in time. So where there weren't sufficient resources available and it was too much, too fast, too soon. So that could be a shock or too little for too long. And too little for too long often falls in that childhood developmental trauma space where we just didn't get the emotional support and regulation that we needed. And most of us didn't because our parents didn't have a clue that it was required. They were the children of parents who lived through a war. So they learned that food and housing and shelter was all we needed for our basic safety needs and our basic survival needs, right? And things have moved on and people now have more of awareness of this. But for those of you who are kind of 35, 40 and above, that's probably your lived experience. So you have that within your system. So this is like the background. And then what happens if we're just creating space? We're just creating space for the body in a session, okay? The reason that we develop these patterns, the reason that we can't feel these emotions, the reason that we've disconnected from our bodies is because it was so overwhelming and scary for us at the time. So when you reconnect to your body, what is actually going to happen is that you have to feel, or you are going to feel, because it's going to come up, the stuff that was too overwhelming to feel before. Okay. If you want to release the people pleasing, you have to be able to feel in your body the discomfort of somebody disagreeing with you or not liking you or feeling disappointed with you and still do the thing that you feel drawn to do instead of abandoning your needs and doing whatever the people pleasing action is. Okay. So, yeah, okay. So let's say you create space for someone in the body. Do you then know how to safely support their system to create that felt sense of safety in the body so they have the capacity to feel those feelings again without becoming overwhelmed, further shut down, re-traumatized? If in a session they connect into their body and a big emotion, do you know how to support them to work through that emotion and fully release it? Have you got the capacity to be with them and their big emotions in a session? If something comes up in a session and they start to share with you a past trauma or a hurt or an upset, do you know how to safely hold them through that process so that they can discharge that energy in their body that has often been stuck there for decades in a healthy, gentle way? So often with my clients, we aren't doing body work at the start. I will always do little, I'm not telling them this, but I will always do sort of little sense checks just to check in with like how connected are they in their body? What have they got the capacity for? Um, where are their resources at? And then from there, I know what I am and am not bringing into a session in order to keep them safe. If people come to me and they're already overwhelmed, they've got burnout in their system, which was my clients for a long, long time, trying to then get them to access their body immediately and release stuff is downright unethical and dangerous because they haven't got the capacity. So I always have batteries on my desk, right? Because I love to use them as a visual example. If you need two fully charged batteries in order to go in and meet the discomfort and have that energy and the capacity to be with that discomfort and change your pattern, right? But your job is crazy and your family is busy, and actually you're a bit knackered, and so your batteries aren't charged, there's no way that your system can safely go into the body and feel that stuff, right? So we have to build the resources and the capacity and the energy first. And there is a process for this. There isn't a one single process, but just creating space for the body is, in my opinion, a recipe for disaster. So, say a person has a busy job and they've got kids and they've got various other stresses going on, and all of that is taking up these two batteries, which may or may not be charged, right? You then need to help them build the resources, the capacity, and the energy of another two batteries, because this is what is going to be used to do the body work to help regulate their nervous system, to help go in and do things. And this is the reason why most people don't do this work for themselves, because they haven't got the energy. But what they don't understand is they can build the resources and the capacity within them so that they can do it. But all the time they are stuck in the people pleasing, the overworking, the overgiving, it's going to be very, very difficult because they aren't going to put themselves first to build these extra resources. And this is where this kind of holistic overall approach comes in, because whilst you are gently helping them to start to very gently connect into some of the sensations in their body, you can then also use awareness, inner child work, parts work, deeper psychological work to help them to also create those neural pathways of understanding of why they are behaving in that way. Okay. And then you bring the two things together so they have that awareness. They do those work with the protective parts. They understand a little bit more about why are they people pleasing? Why are they trying to be perfect all of the time? Why is it that they can't feel anger or shame or grief or even joy or excitement, right? If this is the full gamut of our emotional experience, most of us learned that this was what was acceptable. So we weren't allowed to be too happy or too joyful or too excited, and we sure as shit weren't allowed to be upset, angry, and all of these things down here. Okay. So once we understand this, so it's this whole combined mix of we're creating awareness, we're working with those protective parts, the parts that had to shut down, the parts that have been protecting us from feeling these feelings. But at the same time, because in order to alchemize this, we have to do it through the body at the same time. We are then building these resources so that what then happens is this very natural progression that isn't forced, it isn't requiring them to override themselves. They aren't using more batteries than they've got, where the body has that felt sense of safety within and it's able to start feeling into some of that discomfort and releasing it in a very natural way. And I don't know how to say this any more clearly, but if you haven't got the tools and the capacity within yourself to understand exactly where a client is, what they need, what's too much, what's not too much, how you're going to respond, if they have a big emotional release, if something triggers them, if they bring a trauma to you, how you are going to safely support them in their bodies without getting overwhelmed, I just leave it well alone, right? It's not for everyone. We don't all have to be. I would love it if every coach, every therapist, every facilitator had deep, effective understanding of working with the nervous system and the body alongside mindset, right? Because this is the thing that creates the lasting transformation for our clients. If you are not in that space, then that's totally fine. I wouldn't mess about with it, I guess, is what I'm saying. Because you've got the very intellectual people, they're very in their heads, but they haven't got that felt sense of safety in their bodies. On the other extreme, you might work with people who are much more on the kind of creative, spiritual plane, right? Crown chakra wide open, third eye chakra wide, wide open, but still not grounded with that felt sense of safety in their bodies. And so they spend a lot of time kind of in other planes and other places, but they still haven't got that felt sense and sense of safety and connection into their body. So from a like chakra system perspective, with this work really is how do you get someone very, very strong and stabilized at the root, which is safety and security. And from a more like scientific nervous system perspective, again, it's building that person's felt sense of safety in their body so that they have the capacity to stay in their body, because I reckon at least 95% of people spend most of their time completely disconnected from their bodies. So if this is resonating, if you've got questions, come and let me know. If you want to learn how to do this work properly, safely, effectively, so that you are taking care of yourself, but also taking care of your clients in a session, I would love to invite you to come and join the Embodied Transformation Practitioner Certification. I was like, what's it called? We're starting towards the end of April. I put the information in the comments, or if you're watching this on Instagram, go and find it. It's the first link in my bio. But there is a reason why I feel so compelled, so drawn, so passionate about bringing this certification into the fore. And it is because of the number of spaces that I have been in where this work is not held safely and with the respect that it deserves. So I'm here for your questions. I hope this video was helpful, and no doubt I will catch you soon. Ciao for now.